Oh,
Hello.
we're here with the big pile of Kermit. No, that's not what I was going to say. I remember now.
Woohoo!
Hello,
Hello.
and welcome to the big pile of Kermit. And welcome to you.
Hey, I'm back.
It's been ages.
It has been bloody ages.
People were asking
Well, it's all fine. Here I
what
am.
happened. They were asking.
I've been away a lot.
I've been away on holiday a lot.
Yeah.
I've got Mark here because he's going to help me extract the rear tub, which is buried under everything else of Kermit, and the tree is lying on it. Now, I haven't looked at this rear tub
Okay.
at all. I don't even remember looking at it when I pulled it off of Kermit.
Was that Kermit's original one though?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's keeping sheep in, isn't it? All the people I know with Land Rovers who transport sheep in them have this sort of thing.
I'm going to use it as a camping trunk.
Really? Yeah. Oh, the truck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of this isn't going to be used at all, and some of it's...
Yeah, I remember this. I've been trying to just make a new one. Just put rock sliders on it. Oh, I did something to this one.
That's all going to be a surprise.
Yeah. Far end for me.
With the other pile of Land Rover crap.
It's not as bad as I remember it.
No, I thought it'd be loads worse.
These will do up all right. In
Yeah.
fact, even this, seems we were replacing them at some point.
This is loads better than I expected it to be.
Yeah, it's all in really good nick. I mean, chucking something in a hedge is clearly more effective than you think. That's all fine. Even that one.
Oh, that's good, isn't it?
Yeah. It looks better underneath than on the top.
Yeah, it does.
Yes, I do. Did you notice how Mark disappeared once the boring bit started? I think I've stripped off everything I need to.
certainly for now. Most of this is structurally sound. There is a few bits of corrosion here where you've had the aluminium and steel together. This is the worst of it here, where it's actually eaten through the aluminium. The only serious damage to the tub is here. Obviously this bit's been stoved in, but it's also pulled in this corner by about that much. The plan is then to not do any repair work to this. I'm happy to reuse this as it is. I'll clean it up a bit underneath here, and I'll put a coating of bitumen on there before I put these back on. These I'm going to shot blast, and then I'll coat them with the cold galv. I took these sections off, the bits that hold the lights, because, well, that would need straightening out. But this one has got a chunk missing. See, they're supposed to be the same length, so I'll have to do something about that. Before Mark and I flipped the tub over and had a look at the bottom of it, I was fully expecting to have to replace all of these, and at 50 quid each that would have been quite painful. As you can see though, they're mostly really solid. I think that's the worst one there, but even that, most of it is usable. Yeah, all of this is perfectly serviceable, it's just a bit holy there. A lot less work than I was expecting, which is nice. What we have here is the hydraulic system for actuating the clutch. As hydraulic systems go, this is about as simple as it gets. So you've already seen the pedal box. So you put your foot down on the pedal, it pushes this rod, which pushes a piston inside the master cylinder, and then hydraulic fluid goes all the way through these pipes, and in turn pushes a piston inside the slave cylinder, which works the clutch. Now this is all, except for the pedal box, this is all standard. I've got, this is new, that pipe's new, and these two bits I've salvaged from Kermit. Crucial thing here is there's an adapter. So this is Kermit's pedal box, and I've got the adapter out of the master cylinder here. I've also got to get these fixings off of here, because they don't come with the new one. And although it looks like M8 metric, it's not. It must be said, it's a bizarre design. It's incredibly fiddly to work on. So I'm going to put the master cylinder inside the pedal box here before it goes on the vehicle. I don't think there'll be any access at all once it's on there. This is probably salvageable. I wouldn't want to put it in as it is, but cleaned up with a new set of seals, this would probably be a goer. But since I've got a brand new one just there, I'm going to use that. So I'm going to use new M8 bolts on this bit because I need the Imperial that I just took off to go on the clutch slave cylinder, if that makes sense. And there we go. So that's now, ow, I keep doing that, aren't I? That's roughly in the middle of its travel, so I'll leave it there for now. And there's the stop screw that sets the pedal height. I'll adjust that later as well. So that's ready to go in now. Now the slave cylinder is going to be dead fiddly, and I should have fitted it before I put the engine and gearbox in. Well, there you go. It would have made life slightly easier, but it's not a big deal. It's got to go down there. To make it a little bit easier to fit, I'll raise the front, and if I raise the front, I'll be able to show you something that's been troubling a lot of people. Two things I want to point out while we're up in the air. Here's the first, bearing in mind there are no chocks on the back wheels. It's not going anywhere. I'm completely confident that this is going to hold up with this setup. We've got 6-ton axle stands, and the jack is taking some of the load as well. That's perfectly safe. It wouldn't be any safer if I chocked the back wheel. So that's one comment dealt with. And a whole flurry of people got quite excited about the front brakes here. On a normal series truck, the flexi pipe goes this way, but this is not a normal series truck. This one's got disc brakes. The point is, with this setup, lock to lock, and you can hear it's banging off the stops. It's not touching this shock. I've had to go handheld to give you a close-up of what's going on or what's not going on. So look down there and you'll see the stop. That's the steering stops. So I come over here, we're against those stops. This is not touching that. That pipe down there is not touching the shock either. Well, I hope that's cleared a couple of things up. It's not that I mind being called out on things, but it helps if I've actually done something wrong, which in the case of these two, there was nothing to worry about. There is something I've done completely wrong, but we'll get to that later, and that's the fuel tank. But for now, I'll get on and sort this slave cylinder. Even though the bolts are lovely and clean and they're definitely the right type, they're jamming as they go in. So I'm going to try cutting a little slot. Hopefully it'll clean the thread as it goes. I was just blowing the hole out, getting rid of any stuff that's in there floating about. That works, they're now engaging. Because it's only screwing into aluminium, that's how the steel bolt could cut the thread through. Well, clean the thread really, not cutting it. And I used this tiny little, because it's going into aluminium and I didn't want to ruin anything by cross-threading it or anything, that's why I used a tiny little 10 volt impact driver. All the pipe work now. Flexible hose is to transition from the bulkhead to the engine, because the engine will rock relative to the rest of the vehicle. So that isolates the pipework. I think I'll probably over-explain that. Oh, and I don't think I showed you before I finished the braking system. So that's just the extra line going down to a T-piece down there. Whew. Well, that's all the plumbing done for the hydraulics, I think. Yeah. Brakes are all in, clutch is all in. Obviously it's got to be commissioned yet, so I've got to adjust the pedal boxes, or adjust the pedals. Fill it all up and check it for leaks and such, but for now, that's that. So that's 2 out of the 3 pedals installed. On a bit of a roll, so I'm going to go for the hat trick. Obviously the accelerator pedal is the remaining one. And I'm not going to use Kermit's original setup, mainly because it's actually installed in the other Land Rover. So I've been back on eBay, and I think I've been to the same seller that I got these two from, and I've got a Defender setup. Now the big advantage of this is it's going to be fully cable, rather than on my other Land Rover, and on Land Rovers originally it was all rod linkage. Here's an example of just a little bit of that rod linkage, and you can imagine with loads of these little joints, as soon as you get any wear in the system, there's just going to be loads of slop. So I don't like it at all. Cable is much better. It's not going to go straight in. I have to, it must be the Defender footwells are slightly different in shape. See, that's not going to fit on the back, so I've got to bend it roughly where these two holes are, and then the cable's going to have something to attach to on the other side of this. So there's a little bit of work to do. First, bending this though. So I have to bend it that way. Of course the pedal's in the way, so just there's a teeny weeny roll pin. So I've got to drift that out, and then this pin will come out and the pedal will come off, and then it won't be in the way for me bending that. Just going to put the extractor on. What an absolute mess. This is unbelievably well in it. What I'm going to do is peel off the side and just get it out that way. I should have done that in the first place, shouldn't I? So much for trying to do it properly. Okay, onto the thing I was trying to do. Let's bend it here. Put that one there. So we need a bit more on that yet, but we're up against those. Well, that's better, isn't it? That's there actually. So I'll put two more holes down there. Put those two in, that'll clamp it in tight. Yeah, everything else will conform. So I should be able to bend it around a bit of scrap. That means grabbing that like that. Yeah, that's pretty clean actually. The issue here, because I can't grip this properly in the vise, if I just heat that section and then hammer it round, I'll get a nice curve, which is obviously not what I'm after. I want this to stay flat, this bit, and just move on that axis, just like this one has. So if I use the big adjustable, I should be able to achieve that. But then I'm going to have to leave enough room to get the pedal in there and everything. Right, down to that. That's almost at 90 degrees. Now if I put the rest of the pedal in fairly promptly. So that's quite well lined up now. So there's less travel than there was because I've bent this bit up. But I'm not sure how much travel we need yet. Fractionally need. Yeah, that's where we're going to go. So this is the engine end, which means this has got to be the pedal end. So we've got something to work with here, but I'm going to have to somehow clamp over this onto the bulkhead so that it doesn't just, yeah. So from this side it's going to look like that. Should be a 10mm rise, 64 on that. So that's what I was after. Now I've just got to cut a slot in it there to go over the cable. So it looks like that. A little bit more. Nearly there. Good. That's going to do the job. I'm going to take the pedal off and then I'm just going to paint this brackety thing and the pedal, and that'll do it for tonight. So I dribbled some oil down the end of the cable and I've had it up in the air for the last few hours. So this should be a bit, seemed like a sensible thing to do. Right now, yeah, and a gentle S I'm going for. Honestly, this is just so much nicer than all the linkage, all the rod linkage that's normally involved with a Series Land Rover. The pedal's ready to fit now. This little adjuster on the side of the pedal, that's contacting, well, it's contacting this bolt, but even if I took the bolt out, it would still contact the floor here and stop it going full throttle. So I'm going to cut this off. I think that will give us enough clearance. Excellent. That is all three pedals installed. These two aren't fine-tuned just yet, but I'll wait until, well, there's no point setting the pedal height until I've got a floor and a seat and so on. So that's it up this end for now. Here we are at the rear of Kermit with this fuel tank. I spent so much time and effort getting to sit in this position, and it's not going to work like this, as several people pointed out. Now it's going to foul the rear tub when it goes on. I had allowed for that, or at least I thought I had. It's a straight edge. Ignore the fact this is a level for a moment, just consider that it's straight. So if I run it across there, these are the supports that the rear tub's going to sit on. And there is a gap, there's about 10 mil there. But what I hadn't realised is that the rear tub supports are shaped like that. Yeah, and that one when it fits. So they go like that. They dip. What I've got to do then is drop this down, and the clearance that I need I'm going to have to get from the middle of the cross member rather than above it. That's doable. I've been poking through the stores and I found over the years I've collected quite a selection of things that I can use as spacers. So I've got a few packs of these. These go on shock absorbers. No idea why I got so many. So either these rubber ones or some of these poly brushes. So I'm going to drop this tank then and sort that out. So thank you to the people who pointed that out. One interesting thing that nobody noticed at the time, somebody noticed in the last episode, but nobody noticed at the time, was that these mounts for the rear tub, the rearmost ones, are missing. And that's because when I came to work on the chassis, you might remember, it's over a year ago now, all this was just empty space, which I had to just make up. And it simply didn't occur to me that there were these missing because they weren't there. But I'm not going to reinstate the mounts here. Well, I haven't got any, I'll have to make some up. But what I am going to do is reinforce this back bit here, because the aluminium on the rear tub isn't brilliant along this back section, so I'm going to beef that up anyway. By the time I've beefed that up, you've got the rib is going to go back in here anyhow, and then it's not that distant to there. I think it'll all be fine, don't worry about it. And while we're on the theme of things that didn't occur to me, the drop plate. Now, I'm again grateful to somebody in the comments for pointing this one out. I can't fit a drop plate with the fuel tank installed because there's no access to the rear of the cross member. So while I've got this out then, I'm going to sort out some kind of towing arrangement. What I've got here is the towing equipment from the other Land Rover. So this is what they call a standard drop plate. So on the other Land Rover, I've got the actual tow hitch attached here. And I've made my trailers to suit that. But this chassis is going to sit much higher than the other Land Rover. Now you can get 4 long wheelbase. They do the extended drop plate, which gives you another pair of holes about here. And it's not expensive, but looking at the just looking at the pictures of the aftermarket version, which is all you can get now, it's not as good as this. This must be a genuine one. So you can see here, these bits are thinner than this back plate. The aftermarket version is pressed from a single piece of steel, and these bits are just pushed up. The upshot is the aftermarket version is not built to this spec. It may be adequate, it may not, but it's made of thinner material than the originals. That and the fact it'll take ages to get here, I'm going to make a drop plate. I figured out how I want it to look. If we imagine that this edge of the table is the bottom of the proposed drop plate, so this is all going to be, the one I'm going to make will be exactly the same as this. The hitch is where the extended drop plate would come to. So the extended drop plate that would originally be with the 109 would come down to about here. And the one I'm going to make is going to give an extra pair of holes there. So it's got an overall length of 375. So if I show you that, it should be obvious that this one I've just cut has got much more material here on the shoulders than this one, which I think is a genuine part. And this one in turn has got much more material going on than just a piece of 5mm steel folded into this shape. Next then I've got to translate these holes onto here. So I'll do it on the back. So we're going to go. Now, because I know this is a straight line, I use that as a datum coming down. This is only a fairly rough layout, I should make that clear. But it's perfectly adequate for what we're aiming for. So centre of that to centre of that. I do have a NATO hitch. What I'd like to do is make sure I can fit this on. So I can go up there, straight that one. And then from there, straight that one. So we've got bottom two are going to be there, and then there, and then there, and then these ones are slightly closer together to accommodate fitting a NATO hitch if I want to. Yeah, and there's, yeah, there were spaces here as well at the top, and I can do those with washers. But that I'm going to make out of, what is it, 5mm plate. Okay, and that's 50 across there, which means I want 25 there. I'm also going to put some kind of spreader plate on the inside here. Now there are, well, not crush tubes, but there is some bracing inside the cross member here. But I think another plate, well, it can only help. And the last thing to complete the setup is a piece of angle iron that goes on the bottom of the cross member. So under here, this is the middle of the cross member, there's a captive nut welded onto the cross member, and then there's one more there and one over there. So, 394 between centres of those, that means half of 394. That's all one, isn't it? So it's 150, 45 and 2. Now that is going to go there. I should mention actually that the other option is to fit the adjustable drop plate. So that picks up there and there just like the small one does, but it has the face plate that goes on it and pins that go, 1 or 2 pins that go through. And I did have one of those at one time, and although it's kind of handy having it adjustable, there's a lot of play in those, and especially if you're towing something with a ring hitch, there's a lot of play anyway, so there's a lot of crashing about. I went off them really. We need 3 holes in there. One should be in the middle, so it's 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 20, 25 from that edge, isn't it? Yeah. I've made this angle iron sit 5mm this way from the chassis, so we don't need a spacer on this one. So this is going to be pretty much the setup. There's provision now for putting the NATO hitch there, which means it'll be half bolted onto the cross member, half bolted onto this support underneath, which is pretty good actually. Then I've got a choice of 3 different locations for the main hitch. I don't think I'm going to be going down as far as this. If it was going any lower, I'd think about putting the braces in going up to the chassis, but I really don't think they're needed with this. That's where the hitch is going to be, I suspect. Again, I won't know until I've finished the vehicle and it's at its settled height, whatever that is. So if this setup looks a bit weedy to you, just bear in mind that a Series 3 Land Rover is rated to tow 2 tons maximum. Which is surprisingly low, isn't it? But there it is. That's in the manual. Yeah, it's worked out reasonably well in the end. Time to fire up the diesel compressor then. It's been out of action for a few months because it just wasn't starting. So I've taken the starter motor off, cleaned all the connections and put it back together with some new electrical leads as well. Some big fat earth cable on it. I think it'll be, fingers crossed, it'll be alright. There it is, I just gave it a coat of the Zinger MIO to finish off. And now I can get it all fitted. Washers and the spacer to bring this 5mm out from the cross member, which also makes it match up with this one. That's that. And then on the back of these two, I've got this. The top two bolts that come through, main bolts, and that spreader plate. And the rest of it is all tucked underneath there. That now is somewhat better than factory spec. It's better only in that it's slightly deeper here and I've got thicker steel making up this. Other than that, this is standard Series 3 with that reinforcement bit there. That's great, that took considerable time and effort, but it's done now and I don't have to worry about it again. Splendid. So now we're back to the fuel tank and get that remounted in here, but at a more sensible height. So we've got to clear. Remember, the floor is going to be sat on these. That's it. That's what I'm going with. So there's the spacer at the front end. There's the spacer at the rear. Two there. There's the other two. So there's still a gap. It's much harder to film now. But there is a gap. I'm going to finish up for the day by draining what's in the axles and the transfer box and the gearbox and filling them up with some nice fresh oil. Using my comedy size syringe here. And that will do us, I think, for this episode. Next up, I'm going to be back on the sorting out the manifold, the turbo, the alternator, and of course all of this stuff, the rear tub. Yeah, there's plenty to do. See you next time.